this. So I will hopefully fill in for her. I am not 100% as good as she is, but hopefully I can fill in for her. So we're going to talk about research like a pro verifying AI generated content today. And let's see. So she actually created this using Gamma to help create her slide deck layout. She used the features of importing from a PowerPoint file. She uploaded the unformatted slide deck containing her presentation text, and then she used the following prompt: generate a visually appealing slide deck with images for a presentation to college students about verifying generative AI content. And then she reviewed the file generated by Gamma, and based on this, imported her text into the newly generated theme. So I think this is a beautiful layout, and it's always interesting to see what AI can do for us as we're going along. And so we wanted to share with you the WashU policy on generative AI. So you need to review each university, school, and department handbooks and policies. So schools will be developing and updating their policies as we learn more about AI tools. And as we know, AI is changing like every day. There's a new tool out or something new. I just saw something the other day when I was watching a video on YouTube. There's now a program out there that will write your literature review for you if you're a PhD student within like 15 minutes. Faculty members should teach and advise students about their policies. So, it is the policy of WashU that, each professor or faculty member can decide how they utilize or don't utilize AI. And then students, again, are encouraged to ask their instructors for clarification. And you have to be careful. We're doing another session November 12th on looking at like citing AI and understanding academic integrity behind that, because there can be intentional and unintended forms of plagiarism and falsification of data. I know some programs now are utilizing AI as kind of the background for things. So, depending on how the faculty member looks at it, they could be considered like a form of academic integrity. So we just have to be careful with that. And so we have to ask, why it matters. And it's really because there is no university-wide policy. And so why does this matter? Understanding like being able to verify AI content. And it really makes a sense because there's legal risks, there's reputational damage, and ethical responsibility. So if you're looking at inaccurate or misleading content can result in legal action, particularly if it violates copyright laws, spreads false information, or defames individuals or business. If you look at reputational damage, if AI generated content contains errors or misinformation, it can damage your credibility and trustworthiness as a researcher. We've seen this in real life where some lawyers have gone in and written briefs utilizing AI, and it didn't, it provided false or misleading or false like citations, and the judges are coming back and saying, hey, you need to do your due diligence. You're coming into a court of law, and so that could be reputational damage for somebody. Ethical responsibilities: AI can inadvertently propagate bias or misinformation, which can perpetuate harmful stereotypes or mislead audiences, especially with sensitive topics like health policies and science. And then, generative AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude do not note when they provide misinformation. They will provide answers regardless of the algorithm's accuracy. Therefore, it's really up to you to assess the reliability of the information provided in generative AI output. So it's really important to you to verify everything. There's challenges with verifying. So when, you're using generative AI, there's a lot of information that you have to sift through. And so it can be a little overwhelming. And sometimes it's just easier to take, the information at face value. And again, the quantity of articles to fact check is ever increasing. So if I have to fact check 20 articles, that's going to take time. But it's important to be able to fact check the information. And, the propagation of these articles is fast flowing. So it's, starting at this point where, everything is just propagating new information. And those large language models that generative AI is built on can produce natural sounding articles at the click of a button. So they do sound, fairly, good, but you do have to double check it. And then deep fakes can make misinformation hard to detect, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. Before I go on, any questions from anything so far? And I'll keep an eye on the chat as we go along.
Nothing so far. Thank you.
Okay. So spotting AI generated content can be easy or hard. I have seen some videos online that were funny, well, not so much funny, but interesting, where you have an older woman sitting on a porch feeding bears pie, and you can tell that it's like a generative AI content because there's no chance a bear is going to be sitting there just, handily taking, content, a piece of pie from a lady rocking in her rocking chair. So that one is definitely, AI generated. I saw one the other day that at first glance, I was like, oh my gosh, there's this like animal attacking a child. But then you look at it further and the animal, like it looked like a panther or some sort of large cat attacking this child, and then the dog like kind of like going after it. But the panther or the large cat just comes out of like the air. So it doesn't come from behind the bushes. It just kind of materializes in front of the bushes. And so you could tell that it was generated AI. But so it can be hard to spot AI generated text. So what you want to do is look for inconsistencies and repetitions in language and style. Assess the content and context for logical coherence and accuracy. Be wary of overused buzzwords and unusual grammar patterns. So if it sounds like this is not how somebody would actually write or speak, it could be a sign of AI generated text. Quick responses. So generative AI, when you put something into ChatGPT, it really comes back pretty quickly. And so look at those responses because they may not lack the depth that you're looking for. Look for that placeholder text like lorem ipsum dolor sit amat, and then check for lack of citations or unreliable sources. So if you ask the AI generated text for some sources, that's where you want to double check to make sure to see if those sources actually exist. Again, the large language models are just making up, they're looking at what the next, they're looking at probability of what that next word would be. And so that doesn't mean that they're going to be pulling out, the correct citations. They are getting better, but you can double check, and some of them still do not give you citations. So you also want to, again, look at those inconsistencies. So, sometimes the sentences may seem a little odd as you read them out loud. You're like, this doesn't quite make sense. So just be, very, very aware of that. So here's some examples of generated AI text that Jody went in and did. So she asked them, how are they today? And the response was, thank you for asking. As an AI, I don't have feelings, but I'm here and ready to assist you. How can I help you today? And then she asked, using the theories of Emil Durkheim, to briefly explain in 2 sentences what happens at a sporting event in the United States. So here's the response. At a sporting event in the United States, collective effervescence creates a powerful sense of unity and shared excitement among fans, fostering social solidarity. The rituals and symbols associated with the event strengthen group identity and reinforce social cohesion, providing attendees with a sense of belonging and communal stability. So that is not how I would define or talk about what was happening at a sporting event in the United States, even using Emil Durkheim's, theories. And so it does sound a little odd. And then she also asked ChatGPT, should businesses use texting, use the keyword business texting? And so they went, businesses can definitely benefit from using texting as a communication tool. Here are several reasons why business texting can be advantageous. And so they listed some of that out. So just be aware that's some examples of generated AI text. Also, the next thing beyond generated AI text, you want to see about generated AI images. So the big thing is look for the unusual or inconsistent details. Observe potential distortions in perspective or anatomy. Use a reverse image search to check for similar images online, and check the image metadata for any clues about its origin. So here's a couple of examples. So we've got the Pope in a giant puffer jacket that is generated AI. We have the person in the middle, the woman in the middle wearing the jacket. She actually has 3 arms. So she's got one arm that's going one way, one arm that she's got her hand underneath, and then there's a third hand that's sticking out at the top. Somebody photoshopped garbage in Paris's streets. And then the bottom image with the school children, there's no one's holding the kind of pencil in the middle of the item of the picture. There's this like yellow pencil that nobody is holding up. It's just kind of holding up on its own. So just be aware of that. So these are all generated AI images. And so you have to be careful. And sometimes you'll see it that the generative AI does not do very well with smiles usually. It doesn't do very well with hands. And so they have trouble with hands. And sometimes you'll have, as in this picture with the lady in the center, 3 hands or 3 arms. So just be aware of that. Any questions so far?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. So spotting AI generated videos can also be hard to do. So look at the unnatural movements. So notice unnatural movements and expressions of the subjects. Look at that lighting and shadow and colors. Look for mismatched audio and video or unusual background noise, or that generated sound, the voiceover that you can tell is AI generated, and fact check the information presented in the video. So Jody was able to find a couple examples of AI generated videos. It's an first one is an eToro ad, and the creators played on the ability of neural networks to change faces and personas, paralleling the ad's main message: I'm the one who can be 100 different investors at the same time. There are still some flaws like oddly arranged fingers and giant tulips, but overall not bad. Now let me see if it'll play for us.
100 different investors all at once. With eToro, I can be Grace, a global tech investor. Or Max, a German local stock specialist. I can be Jan, a passive dividend hunter. Hey, I can be David. This David. With eToro, you can be inspired by investors worldwide. Their knowledge, their strategies, all out there for the taking. Be the investor you want to be. eToro.
So that one actually isn't bad. It's not a bad AI generated video, but it is definitely AI generated. There's another one that Microsoft created. They utilize this to create information about their Surface. So they utilize this. Let me share this one with you as well. So they are getting better at creating these, but you can still see some of the stuff. Oh, excuse me a second. the light in here went off. But you can see that it is, the generative AI videos are getting better, and companies are using them to make videos. So what you want to do is, hold on a sec, I got to get the lights back on, excuse me. What you want to do is assess your AI generated content, whether it's text or video or photographs. So you want to look for accuracy and reliability. You want to look at biases. You want to look at copyright, currency, and verify what's the sources that it came from. So the first thing you want to do is ensure accuracy and reliability. So ensuring it in AI generated content is imperative. One way to achieve this is through cross-referencing the information with credible sources. So verifying facts, statistics, and claims against multiple trustworthy references. Fact-checking is very important when using AI. By verifying the information from multiple reliable sources, we can reduce the risk of underutilizing false or misleading information. So again, for example, if an AI generated news article reports a shocking event, we can cross-reference it with other news outlets to confirm its validity. Additionally, cross-referencing can help identify biased or incomplete information, allowing us to present a more balanced perspective. By adopting this practice, we can uphold the integrity of AI-generated content and avoid spreading misinformation. So it's very important to, go to those sites. If you see something online and you're like, it's like very, outlandish, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what somebody's saying, or this is what somebody's doing, go and look at those trusted news sources, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, go to some of the other like Snopes and look at some of these things to see if they're actually saying this information or if it's true. You can go to biases is another big thing that can happen. ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, and other AI chatbots are trained on an enormous amount of public available online text. As a result, they have the same biases as those sources in society that produce them. So typically we see that they're dominated by a white male perspective. They're highly influenced by American culture, American capitalism, and the English language. They can and will invent sources, people, and events. The industry term there is hallucinate. They can generate offensive responses, although filtering has reduced the likelihood that that will happen. Similarly, AI detectors are more likely to flag the work of writers for whom English is not a first language. So none of that means that we should avoid AI altogether. Rather, we need to remember that human judgment is crucial. Chatbots can't reason or make decisions. The writing they produce is based on predictions of word order gleaned from the sources they've analyzed. As with any other information, we need to evaluate AI-created material with a critical eye. So that's super important to know that it's not reasoning like a human does. So if somebody asks me a question, I, can come up with a response, but I'm not going to base my response on, okay, the best, word after the word other, predictably percentage-wise should be, party. I'm not looking at that way. That is the way that the, the AI generators are looking at it. They're looking again at what the percentage of the next word should be. So it's not thinking for itself. We'd like to think that it's thinking for itself, but it's not thinking for itself. Right now, copyright material created by generative AI content tools does not currently receive copyright protections in the United States. And just be aware that there are a lot of AI image and text generation tools that have been trained on material scraped from the web pages without consent of the web page owner or of the, maybe authors of those items. So there are a lot of books out there, that I've seen, and I've seen reports from it where, somebody wrote a book on a specific topic or a fiction book, and then they found out that, a generative AI wrote a book exactly utilizing their exact kind of like language and their ideas, and are now selling that as well. So just be aware. And so also several experts have pointed to previous fair use cases to justify a fair use argument for the use of various training data for AI image generation tools. So just be aware. So, the images and text generation have been trained on material, again, scraped from the web. Several lawsuits have been brought against AI image and text generation platforms that have used visual and textual content created or owned by others. So it's, even though they're using it to train generative AI, the authors are claiming that it's an infringement of copyright. We don't have any like definitive answers. No courts have come out yet, at least that I have seen, talking about this. So it's, kind of interesting to see how this will go. But right now, if you create, something that's created by a generative AI tool does not receive copyright protection here in the United States. Also, you have to be careful because of currency. Depending on the AI tool that you use, they may not use the most current information in the content that they create. And, as we know, and faculty and students and researchers, it is crucial to have the most recent information available for your research. So just be aware, like if you're using an old, a free version of something, look at the about, and they may say, oh, we're only, using information up until, January of 2024. So, just be aware. And then like for the paid one, oh, we're using it through, December of 2024, or we're using it through March of 2025. And then there's another tier. Oh, okay. If you pay more, you've got the stuff that's live. So just be aware there's always going to be, a kind of current information that may not have the best information. And again, some disciplines you have to have the most current information of what's going on. Medicine is like really important to have the most current information that's going on. And again, also check those publication dates for the sources that are used in generative AI texts. So if they provide sources, if they're pulling stuff from 5 years ago, if you're doing something in medicine, that may not be relevant. And just kind of as a note, oops, sorry. As a note, let's see if I can get here. She wrote, ChatGPT as of October 2024, ChatGPT's training data comes from January 2022. And Jody located official OpenAI page from April 2024 that the cutoff date is April 2023 but that's for the paid ChatGPT models. And it has the ability to pull some current information from the internet. Microsoft says its training data comes from October 23, and it also has the ability to pull some current information from the internet. So just be aware, of the data that's coming out. So also look at the sources. So some AI tools are known to create very convincing fake citations. I've seen some that will give correct DOIs, digital object identifiers, or the PubMed IDs, that those are real PubMed IDs or real digital object DOI numbers. But then when you look at the rest of the citation that has nothing to do with the citation, you can, they may have the names of real researchers who study the topic. However, the article may not exist, or may not be from the journal that it cites. So these are called like AI hallucinations. So some steps that you can use to confirm that a citation is real is enter the title of the publication, like the book title or the article title, into the WashU Library's quick search, or a search engine like Google Scholar, and search for that item. If that item doesn't seem to exist, then prompt the AI tool for more details to confirm. So, they can say, you can ask them, could you provide the ISBN or ISSN or the DOI for this publication? Again, those are unique identifiers. It could be that they give you the DOI number or ISBN and it still doesn't match what you're looking for. So be wary of that. If a reference does indeed exist, ensure that you consult the source material to verify that the information provided by the AI tool was summarized correctly. So sometimes, and just as a note, not crediting sources of information used and creating fake citations are both cases of plagiarism, and those are both considered breaches of academic integrity. So just be aware of that. So, look at that information, and sometimes they won't, depending on the, generative AI program, they may not provide you with any citations at all. And we know in, research, we need to have citations of where we got that information from. So let's talk a little bit about verifying information from AI generated content. So you want to always verify and investigate the output you receive from a generative AI tool, no matter how well written or factually correct it might seem at first glance. And what you want to do is take the following steps every time you plan to use AI generated output from your content for your research. So investigate all sources cited by the generative AI. So use our WashU libraries, use Google Scholar, go to that author or author's organization website, look at that publisher's website, look at Google search, Google, just a regular Google search. If you really can't find that information, that the source likely doesn't exist. And so it can take time when you're using a generative AI tool to go back in and look at those sources cited. It does take time, but this is how you want to make sure that you're not providing false information or not using information that, is hallucinated by the generative AI. As I mentioned, they are getting better, but it's still very important. The onus is on you to investigate the sources that are cited by the generative AI. So again, if you can verify that all sources cited by the generative AI tool exist, you still have to verify that the AI tool summarized them correctly in its work. So I would still, even if it gives you that source and it is an actual real source, I would still take a look at that source cited and go in and probably read that article myself, just to make sure that the information that I am using for this research and the information pulling from that article that was cited by generative AI is actually correct. So just as a note, the generative AI may have paraphrased its source in a way that is inaccurate to the content. So then again, so if they provide you some information, that information may not be appropriate to use for your assignment. And then again, also, you want to make sure that, if you are using something that is, generated by AI, that your instructor knows that you are using something generated by AI, whether they gave you permission to utilize it or not. And then also ask them how you might, cite it, how they want you to utilize that within your research assignment. So there are some AI content detection tools. They are notoriously unreliable for providing large numbers of false positives and false negatives. The absolute best of these detectors have performed to correctly identify is about 80% of the time. That means it's wrong in 1 out of every 5 that it looks at. They have I found this interesting that Jody had put in for this. They have identified human written documents like the U.S. Constitution and parts of the Bible as having been generated by AI. They also are discriminatory against students who are not native English speakers, giving false positives for these students up to 70% of the time. And we do have a citation for that. And there's also privacy and security concerns with submitting student work to these tools, particularly without their knowledge or consent. And here's a couple of AI detection tools. Undetectable AI, you paste your text into their AI detector to check to see if it will be flagged as AI generated content. Turnitin has a AI content checker that helps educators, publishers, and researchers identify when an AI writing tool such as ChatGPT or text spinners may have been used in student submission. GPT-0 uses the same technology that was used to develop ChatGPT with the opposite goal of detecting whether content was written by or with AI. The tools under that tool is under constant development, and the last thing they have mentioned is that they're working on building a special solution for educators that can help them use AI technologies responsibly. Illuminarity is it AI or human artist that created your image? Detect AI generated image, synthetic, tampered images, or deep fakes. And then AI or not is detect AI generated images and audio for yourself. So just kind of as a note, Turnitin is designed for academia, students, instructors, publishers, and researchers. It ensures the originality of students' work by exposing even the most sophisticated incorrectness and helping them develop new ideas. And it provides teachers with simple procedures for evaluating the material produced and secure digital exams taken offline. It also ensures integrity and academic excellence for publishers and researchers with its feedback and insight. And again, you know, the GPT-0 is kind of utilizing the same technology, but kind of doing it from the opposite end, trying to determine whether or not it is AI generated. And so, again, my name is Teresa Mastrodonato. Jody Borgerdine actually created this workshop, but she had a class that she had to teach at this time, so I'm filling in for her. But it is now 12:35, and what I would like to do, let me go back to here. And I'm going to end the share. Sorry, I'm going to end sharing. And I want to see if anybody has any questions about anything. And if you want to put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself, and we're happy to answer any questions. And if there's something that I can't answer, I will take the question down and then get back to you about that. I'm happy to provide that information, Dorothy. I'm glad that you were able to come. I want to thank each one of you for coming and joining me today. If you do have any questions that come up, please feel free to reach out to myself or Jody Borgerdine. We are more than happy to talk to you about this. We'll have one more of the generative AI workshop series. November 12th, we're talking about academic integrity, how citing AI, and we'll have actually Andrea Melrose from the Academic Integrity Office in with us to talk about using generative AI and kind of that academic integrity, but also citing and utilizing it and talking to your professor if you decide to use it. So that will be the final generative AI workshops for our generative AI workshop series. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Yes, we can share these slides as well.